Hey Siri, turn on the METAR map. Good timing. Well,
Grief. I
welcome.
think I think every week Lightstream is more buggy than the last week.
Welcome to the flea market. We got cats for sale. We got 3D printed objects. Where do you got? You got me like off center here, man. What are you doing?
What's up, Paul?
Did you recenter my crop a little bit?
Nope.
Okay.
Again,
Nope, too late. I don't care. I'm over it.
Lightstream.
What's wrong with Objective C, Paul?
What's up, Sultan?
Sultan's
Good
in
times.
the house. Objective C in the house.
It's like downpouring outside, man.
Objective C is pretty weird. I attribute it to my I don't love it, but I think it's fine. But I also think that's mostly Stockholm syndrome. So, you know. It is super weird. Brackets all the way down. Apple tacked on a lot of stuff to Objective C over the years too, leading up to Swift. In terms of like properties and different protocol syntax and all this stuff. Dynamic getters and setters, or not dynamic, they generated, I forget exactly what they call them. Where like it'll auto-generate the properties and the instance variables for you. So like if you have a getter and a setter, it'll define those, but then it'll also define like the underscore, local variable thing. But you can override them as long as you follow key value coding. It's a whole thing. Oh man, Sean, I want to be famous. Thank you. That was our chance, man.
Get these little bad boys in the mail.
Ooh. Looking good, man. Now, if I was doing that, I would design them much better, but I didn't feel like recreating them from scratch. I just wanted to print them out because I knew they worked.
I did not pay you any money for you to send me some crap designs.
You paid me in your support.
So here it is, connected to the keyboard.
Yeah, let's see. Can you give us a pan down? There we go. So what this is I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see what I'm pointing at. Yeah, so it's the right hand legs. Yeah, those are the legs that it comes with.
This one.
That
right
one. Tense up the front of the keyboard, which seems like it should be a part of a thing you should be able to get.
Well, it tends based off of like the size of your hand. So if you have bigger hands, you want to tent more. So the idea of tenting isn't so that your wrist is sideways with the Moonlander. The idea is that if you have large hands, you can tent it so this gets farther away from your thumb, or the camera's like backwards. So this thumb cluster is farther away, meaning like you have a bigger thumb.
Okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah. So likewise, if you have smaller hands, you can tent this up. So the thumb cluster is, again, the camera's backwards. So the thumb cluster is closer to your thumbs.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted it tented sideways. So he printed me the stand. So now it sits sideways like this. But the thumb cluster is straight. So I don't have to reach, because otherwise it's really hard to hit the bottom key on the thumb cluster.
Yeah, because it's flat against the desk where the rest of your hand is up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now when I'm typing, my hands are like this instead of like that.
That's good. You're not straining.
Yep. Yeah, it feels good. It took a second to get used to again, but
yeah. This is my latest project. So this was a thing I printed for a friend. I'm gonna send it to him or meet up with him.
Headphone hanger?
Yeah, exactly. Screws in. Screws in under the desk, little countersunk screw holes, and little pass through there, so you can actually fit the screwdriver in there. And man, look at those fillets. Fillets for days.
So it's just like a sparkly material.
Yeah, there's actually, you can see it in there. It has like a glitter in the filament. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there were a ton of these on Thingiverse. I just didn't like any of them, so I just made my own because that's what you do. I find more enjoyment of that than just friggin' printing something out. So
Yeah, I'll have to get one at some point.
Yeah, man. The other problem is like it got there's some sharp edges here on the bottom of the print where the support material was. And I haven't had to deal with that before. I know like wet sanding is a thing. I'm gonna have to try that, but I should test it on something. That
Just
didn't
have
take 4 hours to print.
To have Bucky look it up.
Honestly, probably work. Is chat still working, or are people just sleeping out there? I don't see chat. I think people are just chilling. Is this thing on? So what's our topic actually today, Sean? What are we doing here?
Whatever you want to talk about.
You trolled we could talk about B2B versus B2C.
No.
Okay. What do we got? We got RHR info. We got keeping motivation on site, going on side projects. Was this in relation to what Elon Musk was dealing with over there?
I don't really follow Elon Musk.
Not Elon. Yeah, but
oh, Lance? No, it's not.
Yeah.
Not
okay. Well, he's been asking a lot about stuff too. He's been asking a lot of questions about. He was in here this morning or the other day asking about like
choosing ecosystem and stuff.
Yeah, there's too much stuff to pick from. I feel like we talked about that a lot, but it might be interesting. I don't know. What makes a senior developer? I wonder about this too. I don't know how much there's to really talk about that.
Purely age.
A senior? Like a senior citizen?
A senior developer.
Oh, yeah.
I've
got to say, it is pretty weird, like, having a CTO on your resume. Like, I think that freaks people out when you're just like, no, I was just the only developer. I just had to call myself something. I almost want to take it off because it's like, just put full stack developer or something instead of CTO, because CTO implies, I don't know, something different.
It implies a whole other level of management and planning and focus, because
exactly.
I guess in like a successful company, a CTO's, maybe depending on the size, but like a CTO wouldn't be necessarily in the code committing. There's many other things that they would be doing instead.
Right. Yeah, it almost feels misleading. If you're like, yeah.
I mean, maybe not. I think, like, again, it depends on the company, depends on the company's approach to doing stuff. It depends on a lot of stuff. But yeah, I think, like, in general, people's idea of a CTO is not the only tech person, but that's totally valid role for a CTO in a small company.
Yeah, we could do, is that what Elon said? He's Techno King now? It's his official title. Who knows? Elon twice in 5 minutes. We gotta cut back here. Too much Elon.
We could just call him by his name.
What's his name?
Lance.
Oh no, I'm actually talking about Elon Musk now.
Is my camera like lagging a bit or something like that?
Looks like it. Yeah.
Does it look like that to you in the preview?
In Lightstream, I see it lagging. It's okay now though.
That's weird.
Well, Wi-Fi interference, maybe.
It shouldn't be. I have my phone on airplane mode.
Oh, interesting. Don't know.
Let me run a quick speed test.
Beep bop dee. Beep bop dee. Beep bop digga digga.
I should not be catching up in the competition because I haven't done crap. Yeah, 400 down, 400 up. I shouldn't be having issues with bandwidth.
No, you should not. That's amazing.
Who knows?
What do you guys have a Apple Watch thing going on with Thomas?
He challenged me, but I haven't done crap. So I just you got lucky that my 3,000 calorie afternoon was not logged because the competition hadn't started yet.
Well,
yeah, I'm not really sure what to do about this camera.
audio seems okay, so I don't think it's a bandwidth thing. Global transmit live. I'm just going through our like previous shows and seeing stuff that we didn't get to talk about. I don't even know what some of these things mean. It's like reading a dream journal. Like you don't like what was the context here? No, I can't respond to your help right now. I'm doing my show. Talked about the Prusa, talked about the IBM. I could talk a little about the IBM. I made some progress on that. A little bit. Did some cool stuff with that. Let's see. So I could do talk about ProPom. TCP. What's it called? TCP, sir. Damn. Hard. I don't know.
How's your open API stuff going, Thomas?
Yeah, you said you were picking that back up. We should probably get started here soon. It's already 9:15. Don't want to keep the peeps waiting.
That's cool. Excited to show it off. I'm excited to tear it apart, Thomas. React. Interesting. Why the departure from Vue? Just something to learn? Yeah. Yeah, I'd be happy to look at it. I'm not like a super expert in React, but if you ever need a second pair of eyes. Yeah. Well, thankfully, like becoming comfortable in React isn't that big of a deal. It's the rest of the ecosystem, I think, is really what adds to the iceberg. React itself is relatively simple. Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. It's just functions.
I see you, KUG. I know you're out there. You're seen.
What's up? You ready, Rockwell?
Yeah, well, ready as I'll ever be.
Why is my camera doing that?
You're just really good at holding still. Just functions. Just functions. I'm really, really pissed that I didn't get to use my catchphrase when Eric Norman was on. We had a whole book about functions. And I didn't get to say it's just functions. Yep, this is the flea market, as Brian called it. I got a lot of stuff going on back here.
Going on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The whiteboard that I wrote on once a year ago and has never been touched. The gas stove that has never been hooked up. The guitars that I almost never play. It's all good. This is the active work area. I would show you, but it's
all
secret.
Right. I got audio hijack ready.
Oh, yeah. Ooh, what was I doing in here? Not DNC. All right. Cool. I'm ready.
Cool. Push the button.
All right. Live. I think it's probably your turn. Feels like it's your turn. To clap.
Negative.
Damn it. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Don't freeze up on me now. 1, 2, 3. Technically, we're both the clapper. Every time.
You're the instigator, the initiator, whatever you want to, whatever it's called. You initiate the clapping. The band leader.
Yeah, the band leader. No one wants to be the drummer, though. Did you ever play drums in your band?
No.
Why not?
Because I didn't want to haul all that stuff around.
You just need a drum pad. That's right. That's all you need.
No. It's so much stuff.
It's mostly air.
You have to set it up. It's like moving an apartment every weekend, or every night, rather. It's like... Did I do a lot of drums on the EP? Yeah. But I don't want to carry the physical stuff around.
So you can play. You could play.
I can program drums.
Okay. So you're a programmer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I could program drums if need be, but I would want an actual drummer to write over the top.
Can we get a link to the EP in the show notes?
I could do the MVP.
Can we get a link to the EP in the show notes?
Maybe. I'll think about it.
You're already here. I'm keeping it in, so you're going to have to do it. If we're ever going to get anyone to look at the show notes, we'll link them to your SoundCloud, your rapper SoundCloud.
If I had a rapper SoundCloud, I'd be rich, probably.
You wouldn't be here with us.
Need to put something together with my micro brute. It says Thomas.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I had a fun time with the Pocket Operator this week. I was working on a new feature for the RHR console, and this is a feature called a lockout, where what can happen is it's basically like a global lock where only one person can transmit at any given time, and you might be distributed across the whole world, right? Like you're not sitting in the same room as a person, and so if you try to transmit and someone else is transmitting at the same time, someone has to get kicked off and locked out, right? So you have to have what I wanted to do is have a sound effect that would indicate, there's visual sound effect that says, like, it's orange, it says, hey, you're locked out. But I wanted to have an audible sound effect in case you're not looking, or in case you miss it, or in case you're colorblind. Like, that's, a lot of hams are men, a lot of men are colorblind. That's a thing. So, so I need to make a little sound effect that said, hey, something's wrong. So I went to my Pocket Operator, Went to one of the drum slices, found a good sound that's kind of like a. Well, you know what? I'll splice it in here in the show afterwards. But it's a good little sound. Recorded it with audio hijack. Stuck it in the console. Makes a little beep beep noise when you transmit. And that was a fun little diversion.
Yeah, it's like audio design is really interesting, especially for like UIs and things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really hard to do, I imagine, to get it right.
Could you make all the Mac OS sounds? Asks Thomas. Remake all the Mac OS sounds. That would be a fun challenge for sure. There's a lot of stuff just built in. Obviously, you can record over the samples on the Pocket Operator, but it comes with a pretty diverse set of things built in. Some fun things. Might be interesting.
That's a cool little project. Like I don't want to say like a little project, but that's a cool thing to be doing for a project, like custom. It adds a little bit of flair to it, you know.
Or you could go the other direction and take OS sounds and record them as samples, right? And then make a song out of the samples. I've seen people do that with like the Windows sound effects and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. Traditionally, I've just used GarageBand to make little sound effects. Yeah, because there's a lot of control there with just, that you get for free.
Sure. I've been thinking a little bit about how to put my own spin on my projects.
Oh, yeah?
So that I have, I looked actually, and I have three projects that I'm contributing code to that are like my projects right now, and which is nice, right?
Because like projects, right? Not your personal projects.
No, I mean side projects.
Side projects, okay.
Yeah. So I've gone from the point of I don't know what to use to make this stuff. Now I'm just making this stuff, right? So I've talked about. I've settled on TypeScript, just what I'm using, and so now I'm actually in the we're making stuff phase, and for a long while now, I've just been using Tailwind UI. Like, that's the thing. Like, I just grab Tailwind UI snippets out of there, and my stuff looks like Tailwind UI, And I've mostly been happy with that because it gets you to where people can use your thing, and your thing isn't complete garbage. Probably, like you can make complete garbage with Tailwind UI, but probably it's not complete garbage. So it gets you 80% of the way there. But
title right there. Probably it's not complete garbage.
Well, now that I'm getting a little bit farther in on a couple of them, especially this message box app for Jamie. So she's actually been using it this week. She started on a new, I don't know what to call it, case. I don't know. Right. So she's for people that don't know, she's a staff attorney for a nonprofit, and so she is working on these cases to sort of help protect a rather large like river watershed area here. So. So I'm making something for her to use so she doesn't have to subscribe to Outlook and use that look. And so she's using it. It's being used every day. Cool. And so now I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well now I want to make it look nice, So I start going through Tailwind. I'm like, okay, well here's basically it's like a email inbox UI. It is more or less what I'm building. And of course, Tailwind UI has a couple of examples. But what really stopped me from actually just pulling that UI right into the project I'm working on is that I just really don't want to convert all of the markup to JSX and React components. Like I don't want to copy paste all that HTML and chop it up. I just don't want to do it, right? So now I'm looking at, okay, what can I like pull from Tailwind UI, but also what can I make my own, which feels really good because it's been a long time since I've been in that phase of a project where, it's working, someone's using it, they're generally like relatively happy, and so now I'm thinking about, okay, what's post and VP look like?
Sure. So, is your goal to you mentioned. Putting your own flair on it, is that kind of what you're going for, just to make it not so tailwindy, or is it a usability thing, or what's your motivation there?
Both. I mean, I want it to be tailored towards, especially Jamie's workflow. Eventually, I would like to open this thing up and maybe sell it or whatever. So I guess I'm not really at MVP yet because there's only one person. It's like made for one person currently, but I want it to be more than just a generic, like there's a list on the left and a message view on the right,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You could go
So,
full Basecamp / hey and like make a flow that no one's ever seen before.
Yeah, and I guess at that point, like I'd have to know what the flow is. Like I don't know what the flow is. I've done enough where you can use it, but I don't know what sucks about it. I don't know what's hard to use. I don't know. So I have a number of things I've added to. I'm just using GitHub projects to manage it, and I have a number of things I've added to it, like keyboard shortcuts, like push / to search maybe. I want to be able to have Jamie tag messages. So, like if a bunch of messages are for one case and a bunch of messages for another case, I want her to be able to multi-select them in the sidebar and tag them, or tag them on import, for example. So there's some sort of they're not really specific to this use case. I think like many other applications do this, right? It's sort of a generic use case where you have an import flow and you want to tag that information together. I think it's like, beyond those features, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what can we do here to make this better? Can I implement some sort of thing that scans the contents and like maybe finds links between messages? That could be an interesting project to work on. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. It feels good to be at this phase, but yeah, I'm realizing how much more work there could be going into this thing as I talk about it.
The sky's the limit, right? With all the different features you could add.
Yeah, and like I've been talking with Paul about it, and he's been encouraging me to just throw it on the Apple Store, the App Store. He says it's not too difficult to satisfy the requirements to do that, and I could do that, and then you sort of have built-in distribution, right? Like, I mean, the base level distribution you can do is throw it in the App Store and send people a link. And I mean, you've got apps in there, right? So it's not like you're actively marketing stuff that you've put out. They're just kind of there and people discover it somehow.
Yep, exactly. Through the crappy search.
So I think that could be a good first approach so this would be like my first app, right? Non-web app, right? So I think that could be a first good approach, is just to kind of like make it work well enough and then chuck it in the App Store and just continue to work on it, and maybe people will find it that way.
Well, the cool thing about putting it out there too is it motivates you to actually start supporting and improving it, because you now know that real people are actually using it and might be depending on it. And that level of that's a motivator right there. I mean, when you work on a project for a client, when you work on a side project, you don't always have that pressure on you, that dependency. Someone's depending on you.
Yep. Yeah.
To maintain the app. Yeah. And so like that's even just, I find even just telling people about an app, sending a screenshot to someone, or sending a like, hey, I'm working on this thing. Even that is enough for me to just like, hey, like Cult of Done, right? Posting on the internet counts as a ghost of done, right? Like putting it out there, mentioning it to someone, is the thing. Like, okay, this is real now. Let's work on improving it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, Jamie's using it, which is nice. But she's, as long as it works, she's happy to just deal with the sucky workflow. I think that's one thing that we've been kind of working on, is I'll show her, Better Touch Tool, for example, was a huge eye opener, especially in law school, working through citations and law review and things like that. I'm always like, well, there's a way you could like assign all of this to one button on the keyboard. And she's like, what? And so I think, a portion of people are just, if they find a way that works, even if it's tedious, they'll just work through it. They don't care, which is fine. But yeah, I want to sort of like figure out, okay, I don't want you to be like, I don't want her to be happy with it being tedious. I want to figure out how I can make it like more tailored. And I guess for me, like you talked about motivation, that was actually one of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit today was motivation on the side projects. And in my mind, like if I can make software to make environmentally conscious lawyers more efficient, then I'm doing a net positive for the planet, which is one of the main motivations for starting some of these things in the first place, or even like looking around for tools that I can make to make them more efficient. So there's like an inherent motivation for me there. But I didn't think this would be the case, but I'm finding that like now that I'm at a place where someone's using it, I'm finding more motivation in making, like I said, making it my own, putting my own spin on it. What does my aesthetic look like? What do I think a good app works like? You know, what do I think a good workflow could be? Instead of just sort of, I've always kind of like been in MVP mode. I've been in MVP mode for a long time, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Even with DK, right? It was always sort of just the rocket going to the moon. The rocket's never slowing down, sort of thing. You're sort of like building the tracks as you're going, and yeah. And I think at a certain point, you end up emulating people for so long that you never really end up developing your own style. It's just like music, right? Like you can pick up an instrument and you can learn to play music, and if that's all you ever do is cover songs, and you might not ever define your own style. Like you might never learn like what do you play like, what is your spin, etc. So that was not something that I would have expected to run into or expected to be a motivation, but it is.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a problem of just, aping people's style. I think it's more of a side effect of what kind of work you've done before. Like you've worked on projects that are never finished, right? Right?
Yeah.
You've worked on DK where you were in the startup phase for basically the entire time you were there. Yeah, you had some time to do some rewriting and refactoring, but you were always growing, always adding new features, like writing entire new businesses that split off from the main business, right? And so, and even with your side projects, like you put some time into them, but never really enough to sort of call something finished, right? And I think the key to adding that level of polish is sort of having the time to do it, being able to justify like, okay, I'm done. Now let's clean it up. Let's spend some time on the little polished details. I recently worked on a feature for my Soda Goat, my Summits on the Air ham radio app, and one of the features I wanted to add was a summit tracker. So like it has a whole database of summits in it. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just say, hey, go to this summit, and it brings up a compass and tells you the distance and tells you the elevation remaining, right? Uses the GPS. You could self-post yourself and like all this stuff. And the amount of time I spent just on the compass UI, like stupid. I did a fully custom, like pixel painted the entire compass UI, like on every refresh, rotating the text so it's always upright, drawing the arrow so it's relative to north, right? And then I even did this like trigonometry math to figure out to sort of like draw a pseudo drop shadow. So like as the little north triangle rotates around the circle, like the shadow kind of falls underneath it, right? No one's ever going to notice that, but it's cool. It was fun to work on. And, that kind of freedom of having the time to like work on those cool little whiz-bang features that if even one person notices it, or even if they don't notice it, they just, gain some extra sort of usability from the fact that you spent the extra time to do this little nice little thing is, I think what that really comes down to, again, it's just being, I'm using air quotes, done. I don't know, or just incrementally adding features that are small enough that you can, you know what I mean? The scope of the feature is so small that you can spend time on the little details.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. What you're alluding to basically by adding enough features, essentially, or not adding enough features, but like adding enough to it over time. You're essentially just showing up over time, right?
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And that was that was something I was thinking about yesterday. I was looking at this essentially pile of garbage that I was like, here, Jamie, use this. It looks a little bit better than it did, and I'm looking around at other Electron-based apps. Like there's one called Mochi, which is for spaced repetition, and it looks great. It's an Electron app, and I'm looking at my app, and I'm looking at Mochi, and I'm like, oh, my app sucks. But then I started to think about like, well, I wonder how long they've been working on Mochi, and I wonder how long I know how long I've been working on this thing. So I don't know why my mind always goes to that, like what I'm doing sucks. But yeah, it's sort of just keep showing up over time. The first couple of songs you write aren't going to be good. You just have to write dozens and dozens of songs before you come across a couple that are good. Like a band going into the studio to record a record, they don't show up with 10 songs. They show up with 50. They show up with 75 songs.
Right.
And you get 10 out of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's a similar process, I guess. So it feels good to feel like I'm getting to that point. Like the side projects I've done up to this point have been more about the tech than about the projects themselves. So now that the tech is out of the way, and I keep saying it to myself just because I know my tendencies. So
if you say it enough, it's true. It'll become true.
That's right. Now that the tech is out of the way, I'm just building stuff, right? So again, like going back to that interview I had with Insomnia, where I was talking to Kong's VP of engineering, and he asked like, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, if you were in my position, what would you be doing? And that his answer was just build stuff. Doesn't matter if it's good, doesn't matter if it's bad, doesn't matter what it is, just build stuff. So, yeah.
Again, we'll put a link to Cult of Done in the show notes.
Cult of Done, yeah. So Sensei X in the chat is asking like, are apps ever finished? and then Paul said yes when they're discontinued, and that hit me hard.
That's the real truth right there. The real truth bomb.
Yeah, no, software's never really finished. There's always going to be another bug. There's always going to be like a better way you could be doing something. There's always going to be, especially when you have a collection of people using stuff, there's always going to be, different workflows or different ways of doing things or improvements you can make to make it better for the collective, right? And so what makes it so hard to make the right thing in the long run, I think, is managing feedback from people, because I think like the minority of people using your software are like the vocal ones in the minority, right? So they could be screaming at you the most for a certain feature, but maybe it's not what the majority wants. And so one of the hardest things about building software over the long term is just making the right decisions for your users.
It's so funny, just in contrast, to provide a little contrast, I've been messing around with this IBM portable 5155 that I mentioned, I think, earlier on the show. It's a little IBM from the 1985-6, I think, is when it came out, 86. Anyway, it's running, PC DOS, not even MS-DOS, PC DOS, 3, 5.5 inch floppies, right? All this stuff. Let me tell you, man, basically everything I've done to this has just worked. There's a little bit of, finagling. Yeah, I've got some RAM chips that are bad and I had to replace. Yeah, the floppy drive needed a bit of lube, but guess what? Every single friggin' piece of software that I've tried to run on this thing just works. DOS boots. Download programs from archive.org, throw them on a disk and put them on there. They just work. Like, the machine feels like a machine. Like, I can open it up and work on it. Like, all the parts are replaceable. Bucky's spilling them everywhere right now. No, really, hold on. Cannot afford to lose those screws. Dick. Anyway. It's funny to think about, like, our software is like never going to be finished and probably won't be supported a few years in the future if someone tries to run it. But this thing is still kicking, and it's just such a contrast to like the stuff that we're doing where I don't know. It just blows my mind that this stuff can still just work as it did the day it came out.
Mm-hmm. A lot of the stuff I've worked on sort of feels ephemeral.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the nature of what we do, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I don't know. It's just every week there's, new version of Next, new Laravel Con, new Phoenix conference, new things being announced, new approach of building things, new, updated, etc.
So I gotta get off Twitter, man. But you don't have to worry about all that stuff because you got your tech stack ironed out.
Yeah, what do I care if Laravel is going to be using like a Go router under the hood to replace Nginx? Like, I don't care about that anymore.
Right. Or like next time you need to start a project, then maybe look at the state of the art at that point.
Sure. Yeah.
Or don't. Or look at the thing that was state of the art 2 years ago and use that. It's probably a better idea.
Yeah. Just yeah. You just got to use something. You got to get good enough at using something to build something that's, again, keep telling myself all that. But I don't know. I'm pretty happy doing what I'm doing. Yeah, there's, I have complaints, but
you're not fired up enough
productive today. No, I'm just really, really tired this week. Like, I had half the week off because moving and all that stuff, but still just kind of out of it. I spent all day today in Jira getting things for the next month sort of outlined and putting the tickets and ready to go for the team. So it was awesome while I was gone. I divvied up some assignments, like, or you're leading the spring kickoff, you're doing this meeting, you're doing that meeting or whatever. And so the developers I'm working with have mentioned that they're interested in learning how to do more of the lead role. And so I've been delegating more, like, all right, you lead this meeting, you write that document, kind of divvying it across. And it wasn't really a vacation, but I had like 4 days off. And it was really cool to not check Slack for most of those days and come back after 4 days off, and then nothing's on fire. Everything's like, okay, work got done. Client's happy. I was kind of like looking around, you cover your eyes a little bit and like look around, but
peek through the fingers.
No, it was totally fine. So that was a wild experience. And then, not wild, but it's just different. Like, it's good. It's a good experience. And then, yeah, so now they did so much work while I was gone that now I'm like, oh shoot, now I have to like spend all this time in Jira so they have more stuff to do, which is good. But yeah, a lot of writing, a lot of like combing through designs, and the project I'm on now, it was originally done like only desktop. And so there's so much work that goes into removing that constraint. Okay, now we're done with the desktop and people are using it. Now we're going to make it mobile friendly. It's like, well, in my opinion, that's sort of a backwards approach. And now you have to do all this work to undo the constraints that were built into it. But especially when using like a UI kit, and the UI kit's being used on projects you don't have any visibility into, and then you have to start making changes to it, like, okay, well, now the typography configuration, like, now they're responsive sizes, and so you're touching these like blocks that are foundational to a bunch of projects, and you're just hoping you're not breaking other things. So it's kind of like a slog. Like, I actually was posting around this week asking like if anybody had experience in sort of like visual diffing with Jest like snapshots, or do you know, have you had any experience with Jest snapshots at all, Rockwell?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so let's say that you have like a UI kit and you have a bunch of components, like a base input, like a text input, checkbox, some card components, whatever, like your base building blocks, like Tailwind UI sort of components in a way. You can essentially, with Jest, like a testing framework, have it take a snapshot of the rendered code, like the markup. And that way, when you're making changes in the future and you run tests, if the snapshot's different, then it'll fail. So it'll force you to be like, okay, what's different between these two versions? And then so fast forward, you've got a whole UI kit and you're making changes to these foundational like configurations for the theme, and then all these snapshots are updating, and you're like, okay, I don't know if it's safe to just accept all these changes, or like have to go through them through a comb. It's like it's like opening up like view source in Chrome and just reading stuff and trying to figure out if it's okay.
What's wrong with that? That's a perfectly valid way of doing things.
It's so time consuming, and also like it's very noisy. It's super noisy, and so it can be really. It's just error prone, right? Like when you're having to search for needles essentially in a haystack like that, it's error prone. You're gonna miss stuff.
Sure.
And so yeah. So one thing I did was with MUI, you call a method called create MUI theme, and it spits out an object, and it has like spacing utilities, it has the typography, it has like the color palette in it. Like you import that theme and you use it in your code, right? The problem is that you can override MUI's default component styles with CSS objects, but you have to pass it in when the theme is being created. But what if you have spacing utilities configured that you want to use in the theme overrides? Well, you have to create a base theme first and then import that in your overrides and pass that into the final theme that gets created, right?
Sure.
And,
it's kind of a circular dependency.
right.
I think.
And so, yeah, kinda. So you create a base theme without passing in. I create a base theme and then I pass in the colors, and I pass in like the spacing, and that's it. And then I create another theme that passes in like overriding the tab component style, overriding like individual component styles, right? So the next level up, the next layer up. So I think. Yeah, so it gets a little messy when you're changing this stuff, and then you run the test, the snapshots are different. And you're like, okay, what's different about this? So it gets even more complicated when you have lots of component overrides, and you're relying on spreading objects into other objects because the order matters, right? So if the order gets changed, you could break styles. You could suddenly it looks different, and that's really hard to catch in a snapshot test. So that's what I've been fighting with. I mean, that's probably why I'm tired right now. But yeah, so I started looking around for like visual diffing. So, is there a way that I could like have Puppeteer take a screenshot of the rendered markup, and so that way I can look at a picture of them? Because to me, that'd be a lot easier to spot things. I know what the UI kit looks like. I know what the hi-fi designs look like. So if I can compare the rendered snapshot to that, that'd be nice. So it looks like there might be some stuff out there, but it's certainly not a cottage industry. There's not much out there to do this. There are third-party services, like Storybook has one. I forget what it's called, but essentially it keeps it keeps a track of all your visual diffs for you, which is cool. But good luck convincing your client to pay for another thing, right? And this client is in the security space, so they're going to want to vet everything. And most of the stuff they run is open source and behind their own VPN wall. So yeah, I can't that's not a solution. So there is one called Percy, which looks really cool. I think it's let me pull the link up really quick. It's just visual diffing, right? So it compares screenshot A to screenshot B, and it will tell you if it's different, which is nice. But it's it's a SaaS. As far as I'm aware, it's not open source. You can host it yourself. So, you're kind of out of luck there. So the only other solution looks like something Puppeteer based, which is going to be a whole thing as well. So please God, if anyone listening knows about any of this stuff, let me know.
You're asking the wrong person here. I can't help you.
Right. So like, what are your as I'm explaining this problem to you, how do you feel about it?
Well, having never written UI tests, I just gotten by click testing everything forever. UI tests, controller tests, unit tests, you name it. I've click tested it. It's something I've thought about sometime. Like, at some point, I'm probably going to have to work somewhere that has a real testing environment, and or like I'm going to be on an interview and someone's going to ask me, so tell me about your testing strategy, and I'm going to have to be like, shrug. The real answer is I see the value in testing. I just haven't been able to justify it for doing my own personal projects because I'm just one person, and the value of the test is, tests are valuable regardless, but They're more valuable when you've got a lot of people working on one thing, right? That's why I write them for my open source projects, right? I always have tests for those things, but not for my own stuff. Like, who cares? It's just me. I'm just yelling at myself. So, so my thought is, I don't even have enough context to know what the right answer is. Like this like visual diffing, okay, but what does it even look like? Like, does someone go through it by hand? What if the markup is different? You know, what if you've changed some kind of accessibility attribute, but the diff is still the same visually, right? What if they use wow. What if there's padding instead of margin, but just happens to, you know, pixel for pixel end up being the same on an individual component, but within the layout it's totally broken? I don't know.
I mean, I think at that point I would prefer false positives over shipping something that's busted that I just didn't see.
How do you mean? Like,
well, I would prefer to look at two pictures that are the same and be like, oh, never mind, they're the same, accept it, versus, oh shoot, this thing is like having looking at the specifications and issues spreadsheet and noticing a new row in it. I would much rather two images that might be the same, like a false positive in that way, than having to talk about the thing on the stand-up.
Sure. Because that's gonna, you know, solve 99% of the issues, and then the 1% of the time, you just go back and fix it.
But it seems like such a heavy-handed thing, right? It seems like we shouldn't have to do this. It seems like such a big mechanical moving piece. Oh, you're gonna have to spin up a headless browser and take screenshots of the stuff you're building. You know, maybe this is #enterprise. You know, I mean, the software I'm working on is not enterprise, but sometimes it feels like it.
Yeah, I don't. Forgetting the whole testing piece for a second. It's just it raises the question of what's the underlying cause of this. Like, why? I know you just explained it. Like, you're doing a lot of refactoring. You're trying to take this desktop thing and make it mobile. Yeah, you're making a lot of changes, but fundamentally, like, how can this happen? You know, are the components too deeply nested? Are there just too many components to keep track of? Is it a problem with Material UI and the way that, you know, attributes and stuff are passed down, that, like, you know, you need to have some kind of better system for structuring the styling of the UI? You know, do you need a DSL? Probably not. But, like, do you, what's the real, it doesn't even, you know, what am I trying to say? You could surmise all day about what the underlying root cause is, but when it comes down to it, like, there's probably nothing you can do about it, because there's too much momentum, and you can't just change this fundamental way of the way the application works. You can just kind of learn from it and maybe apply what you learned to a future project.
Well, I think so. The question of, like, why is this happening is a really good question to ask too. Like, I think it's probably important to ask that. And the point about momentum is also valid, because that, like you said, even if you ask why, the momentum required by the client is enough to make the why not matter in many cases, right? I think in our case, you know, we inherited code from the client, and I think, like, theming is difficult in general, especially when you're trying to use semantic naming. Like, I think you can pull out semantic naming. You just have to be very disciplined about it. By semantic naming, I mean, like, instead of, you know, having a palette with colors in it, you have, like, card 1, card 2, card 3, H1, H2, H3. You know, just things that map to semantically. I don't know how else to describe it. And that's the thing, is that, you know, it was built halfway by a different team and then came over to our team. And then what made it more difficult was, like, designs had been done, and designs hadn't been completed when their team was building this thing. And so then we get handed designs that don't necessarily reflect what we got. And so it's a number of things, right, that lead up to, I don't mean to make excuses here, but it's a number of things that led up to the point where There are changes happening to the UI kit and design. There are changes happening to features outside of the UI kit, like the building blocks of this thing. And we're doing work to sort of reconcile them both. And we need to keep velocity up. We need to hit our targets in terms of like, okay, this is what you can have this quarter. And that's what they tell their investors or whatever. So it's doing it all correctly and not rushing, because I think like, yeah, I can catch all these mistakes if I literally can sit there for half a day and look at snapshots, right? But I don't think I can. I don't feel like I can do that, So, yeah.
This feels like the situation I was describing last week, where walking in on the guy trying to resolve merge conflicts, and he's got his, he's got his head in his hands. That's what that feels like to me. It's just frustration caused by I don't know, process issues.
Yeah, and I think the real issue here is that there are foundational changes happening at the same time. So there are if we're thinking in layers again, like stratified design or whatever, the theme object itself, the configuration, typography, colors, spacing, component overrides, those are like pretty low level in terms of this cake that we have for the front end. And then you have the pages that are using these components, that are importing these shared components, and they're being used in pages, and they're being used on the actual application. That's like the high level, right? Mm-hmm. So that level is easier to change than the lower level. And when you're changing the lower level, it has effects that cascade throughout the higher levels, right?
So my first question already is, why is your theme in an object? Why isn't it just functions?
MUI.
Yeah, I know, but like, that's one way you can abstract those changes away, is just have a thing that just has a bunch of methods or getters or functions on it that get the individual themes, and that way you have the flexibility to, add options, have all your kind of logic for that stuff in one place. I don't know enough about how MUI theming works. But
that's how it works. It's all in one spot.
Sure.
The issue is that there's just a lot of it, because MUI has a whole lot of components in it, but our thing doesn't look like MUI. So we have to, as many components exist, we have to overwrite those components with theme overrides, right? So now you're doubling. You have double, essentially. For any component that you use, you now have to have an override to make sure it looks like the designs or the app that you're working in, right? And so as we're building this out, as as the UI kit is being updated, right? So I'm talking about the desktop now has some font sizes that are like 14 pixels, but on mobile, if it's 14 pixels and someone taps in the input, then it zooms in, and maybe the client doesn't want that. So then you have to update that to 16 pixels. So you're changing that typography that could be used anywhere. Like you're importing something from the theme, which is valid, and you change that, and that's where that cascading effect comes, right? And so really, like, it's not really avoidable. Like changing the bottom layer of this setup isn't avoidable, because that's the work that's happening. It's foundational. The UI kit is changing. The building, like the Legos of this thing, are changing. So those things have to be updated. And it just so happens that it just cascades out, makes it more difficult. So. But I think that's the reality of it, is that the work we're doing is touching both the lower levels and the upper levels at the same time.
Got it.
And I think if we're able to do it, if we were able to only work on the lower level, or only work on obviously working on only the higher levels, about as easy as it can get, right? Because there's not that many consequences. Like, you're changing a page, that one page is the only thing that changes. It's just that the reality of the project currently is that because we went from desktop to also doing mobile and tablet and desktop, that the lower level has to change as well as the higher level too.
Yeah, this reminds me of our discussion with Eric about stratified design, where you've got arrows. You've got this sort of layers of boxes and arrows pointing from one layer down to the next, and then from that layer down to the one below it. And his reasoning, or his rationale in the book, was that layers at the bottom, like you said, are foundational. They should be sort of simple. They should be correct. They should never change. You should probably test those the most, and not test the ones at the edge so much. Just test the core foundation, and that way that you've got foundational building blocks to build that stuff on. But like you said, you're touching that necessarily, and so that's gonna cascade. Whereas on the sort of leaves at the leaves at sort of the top of your stratified design, you've got your pages, which, yeah, like you said, are easy to change as a one-off because it doesn't affect anything.
Yeah. So I haven't really thought about this too much in the idea or the vein of stratified design, but it makes a lot of sense. It's funny. It's fun to apply this to the front end side of the stack. Like, I guess it's not even just the front end side of the stack, right? It's more than that, because the main building blocks here are used in multiple applications at this point. So it's not just the front end at that point. It's literally a dependency of these other things that is changing. So yeah, I think that I've been trying to think about stratified design more, like as I'm reviewing pull requests and things, like looking at the code, like, are we crossing layers here? Is there an abstraction we can make here? I'm not trying to get too wild about it, but just I think thinking about those layers and are we reaching across the boundaries gets you pretty far without having to prescribe specific, like, here's a specific pattern that you can apply to this thing, right? But yeah, that's what I've been just honestly struggling with for a little bit now, is trying to keep up with all the changes that are happening, because we have weekly design calls with the client where things happen, and oftentimes that results in, oh shoot, okay, we need to adjust something in the theme. All right, here we go again. Like, we're going spelunking again, and it just sort of adds up. So I'm looking for a convenient way to help me with that, and I haven't found one yet.
Yeah. Software development's hard. Software development's hard, man.
Well, it's like, I introduced a couple of bugs because I was talking about how some of the things in the theme, right? We have we have a dark theme and a light theme, and then we have commonalities between the two. So common typography, common colors, common component overrides, and we have the common stuff defined first, and then we have light and dark, and then you have to spread, like, say you have dark.palette and light.palette, and then you have common colors between them. You want to create dark.palette, and you want to take the common ones and then overwrite. You have like the main palette, and then you overwrite what needs to be overwritten with the dark specific colors, and the same thing for the light. Well, if you switch the order that you're doing it, it's broken, and the problem is that, yeah, it's easy to kind of keep that in mind, but when you're actually making the change, reviewing MRs, hopping in meetings, talking with people on Slack, trying to figure out, and I'm not trying to paint a sob story here, but it's just the reality of programming. It's like programming itself is hard, but like doing the right thing while doing all these other things is even more difficult. And so it makes it even harder for me to just get it right in the first place, Yeah,
well, yeah, because you can't keep all the context of the entire thing in your head all the time. Yeah. So you have to have the tools or the resources or the processes in place to sort of force you in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly.
If you can.
So,
yeah, I think of everything all at once.
I think at least having a visual diff, like going back to that, would be helpful. But who knows? It may not even like be the right thing. It may not.
Whose job is it to look at that? Worse. Who's going to do it?
That's my job.
How much time is that going to cost? How much money is that going to cost? I
Exactly.
feel like you could do it with like you could hack something together where you just friggin' suck some pixels off the canvas, like in Chrome, and just like dump it to disk, and then do some kind of like MD5 diffing, and like, or use what's it called? Image Magic, yeah. Image Magic, and just friggin' overlay the two things with opacity, or like subtract them. I feel like you could do this with a shell script. like Paul is saying, best of luck selling that. So when you're describing that, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'll have to support this too. And when we hand the project over to them, then they have to support it. So that's like a non-starter in my mind, because they don't have time for that. Proof of concept. Proof of concept.
Proof of concept. Well, I mean, there's things like I'm putting this in. I'll put this in the show notes too. But like, it's called for Storybook. It's called Add-on Story Shots Puppeteer. Have you used Storybook at all, Rockwell?
I don't know what any of these proper nouns are.
Okay. I guess I should explain it for the audience too. But like Storybook, imagine you're building.
Sounds like
UI.
you're describing like a children's fair.
Yeah, it kind of. But imagine you have like your component UI toolkit, right? Storybook is a way for you to build a toolkit and then also showcase it. So here, I'm going to send you a link so you can look at it. I'll try to describe it so people can listening to the podcast can.
Let's describe the visual medium in our totally analog.
Well,
audio.
It'll work. So you have aside the list of components. So in this example, you have charts, and under the charts folder, you have a line graph, pie chart, histogram, and then they might have like the account menu. You might have tooltips, badges, buttons. Like things you would use.
I've seen this described as the
components.
I've seen this described as the kitchen sink.
The kitchen sink, exactly.
For demoing like Bootstrap, I think they call this the kitchen sink, where you can play with all the components.
Exactly, that's exactly what it is. So you click on like pie chart and you kind of like put this all together. So in the code for Storybook, you create a new story for pie chart, and then you pull the pie chart in, and then there are different things you can do with it. So they have like what's called knobs and buttons. So you can say like you can expose the props. So you can make a text input if you want to change, like allow the user that's using Storybook to change something in the pie chart, right? You
so
can
this is still
make it interactive.
So this is still, wow, this is still effectively click tasting though, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're using Storybook, and then there's an add-on called Story Shots Puppeteer, and so when you make changes, you can run a command that it goes through the Storybook and takes screenshots of all your stories. So in my mind, that's like the closest to what I want, because the Storybook's got to exist anyway. If I can just catalog what it looks like and have a really quick way without switching branches to see if things are different, that's really what I want. I still have to go through it by hand, but I'm not looking at code. Like I'm not like visually diffing HTML and trying to like in my mind, because visually I would look at it and try to render it in my brain, right? So if I can actually render it, that'd be better.
It's even worse render than like IE5.
It's uncanny valley render. That's what it is.
It's all in Comic
Something's
Sans,
not quite right.
and like the box model is all
Exactly.
wrong. The text is just dangling off the end of the div.
Yeah, but yeah, essentially Storybook is like the kitchen sink example. You can manipulate it, you can play with it, and there are a pile of add-ons, and one of them happens to be a puppeteer. So I might try that. But essentially, yeah, we have our main component library, and we use Storybook for it, and then that main component library is pulled into other applications. So.
Sorry, I'm looking at this beautiful what's the word? Utopia of pure UI components and just laughing to myself. Because when we get this thing working, you have to wrap them in wrap them in containers on providers on top of.
And then you have to think about mocking API, like if components work with API, like say, like, yeah, you're mocking, like if you have a UI kit, like those components probably don't make, API calls or something. But what if you're using Storybook to build like the end API, like your end application? Then you have to worry about mocking API requests in most cases, unless you always have a staging server running. Then you worry about like schema migrations or whatever, like mismatching versions and stuff. It's a mess. So yeah, when you say this perfect utopia, it makes me laugh, because I'm like, I would imagine that most storybooks are just garbage, like they're just dumpster fires.
Yeah, this would never work for me. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but it's like working pretty. It's kind of nice to honestly work with. Like when we're doing UI kit, we send an MR to each other, again using GitLab, so merge request. And then I pulled on their branch, open up Storybook, and then I can say, oh, can you go back and add a couple of stories for this specific edge case that we fixed, or this specific edge case where the design was changed, or whatever. And that's honestly kind of nice, because then I don't have to like go through and click around in the UI to try to get it into a state where I can test it. It's just presentational. It's just kind of there. It's easy to have exist in that capacity. But it's any other dependency, right? Like you have to have conventions. Otherwise, you have stories with names that don't make sense. You have some have knobs and buttons, and some don't. Some it's just I don't know. It's almost like a full-time job just to manage the storybook side of things too. So it just takes it takes a lot of diligence to keep it up to date. But again, that's my job, I guess. So
yeah. Job security. There.
How does it make you feel? Do you feel like I'm on a totally different planet from like where I was 6 months ago?
I just feel happy just wallowing in the mud of my tightly coupled, unreusable Vue components with globals scattered everywhere, global state, global callbacks. You know what? It's fine.
Now imagine.
I don't want
this code
so bad. I'm not going to want to reuse it anyway. So why would I bother making it reusable?
Now imagine you're working with a client and their APIs don't exist yet, and you're having to mock all the data based off of what they told you it would look like, and now you have storybook components that are based off of that data, and they deliver you the API. I'm not saying this client did this because they didn't, but imagine a scenario where they deliver the APIs and it doesn't look like anything like they told you it would, and you get to go and redo all of that.
Yeah, I would have just said no at the first thing. Just said no. Just wait till the API's done.
Amen.
It's okay to
stay
fire.
In Indie Land. Stay in Indie Land, Rockwell. Stay in Indie Land. Bringing you back to you. Anyway, this is what I'm dealing with. So if I seem tired, I guess this is why. Like, you're making me realize how much of just a dog and horse and pony show or whatever the saying is, right? I don't know. It's useful in many cases, but it's a lot.
Well, no, seeing all these cool tools. What?
Go ahead.
Oh, I don't know. It's cool to hear about all these tools and processes that you have, and I like to imagine having the time to implement them. But then I also think about like what value would that add for, a developer team of one? Not a lot. Future me, yeah. Maybe. If I was bringing other people, maybe. If I was gonna, if this was a handoff situation where I had to get stuff ready for someone else to take care of, like, yeah, I'm gonna spend all the time on the tooling to make that transition and learning and teaching process as easy as possible. But until I get hit by a bus, it's just garbage layers all the way down.
So I guess the analogy I've been trying to use a little bit when talking to people internally about do we build or do we buy? I try to think about it in like boats maybe. A small dinghy fishing boat. Yeah, it's easy enough for one person to wrangle, easy enough for one person to take care of. Doesn't cost very much money. The upkeep on it is like nothing. Versus a yacht where you have a dedicated crew and it costs a lot of money to take care of a boat, keep a boat like fixed up, and you can't just like take it out with just one person. You have to have a team, right? Is it a fishing boat or is it a yacht? Where is it on the spectrum?
Sorry, my fault. Back.
Yeah.
All right, you're talking about yachts.
Yeah. Are we back? There we go.
Yeah, we're good.
It does this every time.
No, it's my fault. I hit refresh back.
Oh, I see. So, do you want me to go over the analogy again?
Yes, hit me from the top because I have a tie-in after this.
Okay. So yes, again, the analogy I've been trying to use, or trying to like when I think about when I'm talking with people like in the build versus buy, or should we use this thing, is like fishing boat versus a yacht. Like a fishing boat, with small metal boat or whatever, it's easy for one person to take care of. It doesn't cost that much money in the grand scheme of things. Maintenance is almost zero, unless you ram it into the ground. and you can just take it out yourself. You know, you don't need more than one person to maintain this thing. Versus the other end of the spectrum, which is a yacht, like you need a team of people that take care of the yacht. You can't just take it out yourself. You need the team of people to go out. Like you can't just have one person driving this thing around. And they're very expensive to both house, and the maintenance and upkeep is expensive. So, you know, where are we on the spectrum? And I think like Storybook is probably closer to the yacht side of things than the fishing boat side of things.
It's really funny you bring this analogy up because just the other night, I happened to see a picture of one of these super yachts, you know, like $500 million super yachts. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I want to know what it's like to just look inside that. And sure enough, I came across super-yacht.tv, which is a streaming TV station that is just entirely video ads for yachts that are for charter or for sale. And it's amazing. Like if you want to just imagine what your life could be like, if you're feeling down and just want to, you know, imagine what it's like to have that kind of money to spend, super-yacht.tv. It's a whole other world. It's amazing. Especially when, you know, like people out of work, the economy could be in shambles, like, and you still got Super Yacht just streaming away. Anyway.
Yeah, man. That's what it was like going to Southern California to meet up with the DK crew, because that's where Lindsay's from. Like staying at a hotel and there's yachts parked out back.
They're parked. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, so Balboa Island over there are houses that the backyard has yacht parking. There's like a dugout channel where you would pull your yacht up and park it behind your house.
How you know you don't own a yacht when you call it yacht parking?
Your boat
That's
parking,
great.
yeah. The captains are out there hosing the boat down, sweeping it, cleaning it, like doing all the work. You know, it's just pretty different. It's a different lifestyle altogether.
But to your point, I was looking at some of these yachts, and like usually the number of crew is more than the number of passengers on them. You know, one of these was like 40-person crew and a 24-passenger capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your dependencies.
That's right. Talking about your leaky extraction, right? Just leaking money all over the place.
Hopefully the yacht's not leaking.
I mean, you want it to a little bit. Like if the wave comes up, you want it to shoot off the sides or whatever, leak out the sides. The bilge pump should be working. But
just use nautical analogies from now on. We're going for this buoy design or buoyant. We're going for buoyant design.
That's right.
We need the code at the bottom the code at the top to displace the code at the bottom so the code at the top can stay afloat. We'll workshop it.
We're workshopping it. But yeah, so that's what I'm up to over here. Just experiencing the front end world full force.
Cool. Well, best of luck with that.
Really, I just want to get back to my Electron app, so.
I don't want to work on this front end anymore. I want to go work on this front end.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. I feel you.
Well, it's getting to that time.
Yeah, I guess so. Jesus. Time to get back on my yacht. The SS Bucky.
SS Bucky. Well, if anybody doesn't have a solution to my problems, please let me know. Please.
Someone out there has a solution. They're just not listening yet.
Somebody knows which NPM package I need.
Oh God. When your solution is adding more NPM packages,
when is that not the solution though?
It's just you can.
What did Jose say about Elixir? It's a batteries included language.
Elixir's done, man. They're not adding more features to Elixir. It's feature complete.
That's right.
It's true. I'm not being sarcastic. That's a thing that they said, and they're sticking to it. It's kind of cool to think about. Well, anyway, give us your hot takes on Twitter. DNCcast, Sean is Sean Washbot, and I'm Rockwell. Kid Queb says, npm install react hyphen problem you have. So true. So true.
He's not wrong.
Not wrong.
So as always, everything we talked about.
Except when the package that stole the canonical, or the package that stole the really good catchy name was the first one, and therefore it's the oldest one, and therefore it hasn't maintained in 3 years and has 572 GitHub issues, and it hasn't been updated since npm or node 12, and they forked off of it, and then they have a different name, and it's have to come up with a clever name that you'll never be able to find. Surely you've been there before.
I have been there before. So Shy Ryan is saying, what if my problem is React? Well, see, the thing is, Shy Ryan, there's such a term as micro front ends, right?
No.
So you can just slap up a Vue app right next to the React one and problem solved. As always, anything
there for server rendering.
Anything we talked about today it's going to be linked in the show notes. So head on over to dnc.show for access to all those sweet links.
You know what I did the first time I tried to use Node? I did npm, install whatever I was trying to do. I don't remember. This was years ago. npm install, downloading, done. I looked at the Node modules folder. I just deleted the whole folder and walked away. Just closed the terminal, deleted the folder. I was like, this is garbage. I didn't learn, Sean. I didn't learn. How far are we fallen?
Well, it's you can't escape it.
Show notes are on dnc.show. I stole your line. What else? We're recording Twitch every Thursday night, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern, twitch.tv/DNCcast. We're going to have some guests on soon. We have 2 guests in the pipeline coming up. We'll let you know about those as soon as we know. Really excited about those. 3 guests, actually, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got Thomas hooked
another book chat.
Hooked us up another one. We got a book chat. We got a developer chat. We got another developer chat, blogger chat. So, yeah, going by the Twitch and see some faces other than ours.
And last but not least, we've got a Discord server. So server render gang, as Matt is saying in the chat, to crickets.
Rails 4.2, where are you at?
Yes, the Discord. If you're interested in talking shop, if you're interested in talking about, 3D printing, cooking, money and finances, what else have we been talking about lately? Video games, anything at all. I guess if you're interested in learning how to program, you haven't taken the plunge yet, or you're wanting to learn more, we have a whole Discord full of people that want to help out. Yeah, as Thomas in the chat is saying, we've been talking about MRR, building apps to launch and make money with. So that sounds interesting to you. In the show notes, we have a link to an invite for the Discord chat, and you should definitely join us. Everybody's welcome.
By the way, quick PSA about MRRs. If you're setting up an LLC, Jess just did this recently for something she's working on, and I've never done this, but holy crap, the amount of scammy looking, or the professional looking scams that she's gotten in the mail since registering the LLC, you got to be on the lookout for this stuff, because it should be illegal. How serious these snail mail things look, and they're asking for hundreds of dollars to do some nonsense thing because you have an LLC and your information's public, and they're trying to scam you out of some money. Please be aware if that is a thing. I didn't know it was a thing. It sucks that it's a thing.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Not surprised one bit.
Yeah.
But, yeah, well, I guess I'll talk to you next week.
Cool. I've been working on some stuff, and I don't know. I was gonna have a cool segue there, but I don't actually have anything to say until I have it done. So, but yeah, man. I'll talk to you next week.
All right. See you. Oh, go on.
Oh, this is gonna be fun to edit. Yeah, the one email, the one snail mail that Jess got was like, oh, it was a thing to order like the set of posters that you have to, federally mandated posters that you have to put up in your like workspace to show like you comply with I don't know, like labor laws and stuff. And then the other one was like get an official certificate of incorporation. It was just like this thing you could frame on your wall, and it was like $79. It's like, what? Ridiculous. Yeah, as if people have workplaces anymore. Can I get some IT? What are you talking about, Paul? Unless you want to talk about It, the movie It, or the book It.
Programming 1. Oh,
I'm being pinged. I'm being pinged.
SOS.
Multi. You're out of band, Paul. RCT Logwarn. Roller Coaster Tycoon?
There are frogs outside. I hear frogs.
I hear him. I can hear him from here.
They're very loud.
I hope they're not in the recording. The hash.
You want me to go out there and tell the frogs to show up?
Unsigned long.
To shut up?
Message hash. What type is message hash? It's a string. Message hash is a string. All I want to do is look through and answer and find the one with the matching hash. It's not too big. First of all, I don't think you can just friggin' cast strings to longs like that. I don't think that's legit. I think you gotta, right? Don't you have to do it as NS number formatter? I assume you're working with Coco here, not just straight up Objective-C, but it might be the wrong thing to assume.
That's what she said.
I don't think you can cast. Maybe I'm wrong. But it's weird that they're so close. What's your XY problem, Paul? What are you trying to solve? We can also take this offline. This is not interesting for anyone who doesn't know what's going on. But hit me up in the chat, Paul. I'll take this in the chat. My brain's fried today, man.
Yeah, I should probably get going soon. I got to go back up to Santa Rosa to finish
one more trip.
The last, just like the final apartment clean and like getting the router because we left it up there because we knew we'd be coming back and things like that. Chores, more or less.
Yep. Do you have it to the end of the month or?
Yep. Yeah, we have it to the end of the month.
Cool.
Which has been really nice. We haven't had to rush or anything like that. So
yeah, that's the way to do it, honestly. Yeah. Again, I'm sad I didn't get to come visit you in Santa Rosa, but to come visit in
I
Santa
mean,
Cruz. Once
Santa
I
Cruz is
get,
better.
I think April I can get vaccinated. So
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Santa Cruz is better in my opinion anyway. So
cool.
come down here and we can take our laptops to the beach and work from the beach like I used to.
No, you're gonna teach me how to surf. We're gonna go.
Oh,
We're gonna
right.
bomb. We're gonna go bomb some hills on the longboard.
Oh my God, I would
Hang
die
out at a
if I.
coffee shop.
Yeah, actually, yeah. There's a good coffee shop not too far from here.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah. Get a
You do
barrel
anything-
breakfast burrito.
Big adventure this weekend is gonna do the Hudson River tour. It's gonna be nice on Sunday, so we're gonna go fly down the Hudson below
Oh, that's
at
cool.
1,000 feet below the tops of the buildings. It's pretty wild that you can even do that.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah. They have this whole special flight rules above. As long as you stay over the Hudson River, you can fly down it at 1,000 feet basically, and stay underneath JFK, LaGuardia, Teterboro, and Newark airspace, and you just kind of scoot in under it. You don't have to talk to air traffic control or anything. Pretty wild. Do a couple laps around the Statue of Liberty, and it'll be fun.
Yeah. That does sound fun. Hopefully enjoy that and it's safe flying and all that.
I wonder. There used to be a flight restriction around Trump Tower because, he was a president. And the flight restriction was just big enough that it extended a little bit into the river. And so you had to, like, scoot over when you flew by it so you didn't, like, violate that airspace. Not that anything's going to happen, but, like,
Yeah,
got to follow the letter of the law
most of the time.
most of the time. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I'm gonna take off for the night.
All right, good luck. Good luck with your trip.
Yeah.
Cool.
See
Good
everybody.
chat. I gotta go help Paul with Objective C nonsense.
What's different between 1 and 2? Just so that way, if there's like prolonged conversation in 1 and someone else needs help, they can jump into 2 instead. We
It's
ran
sharded.
into that over the. Yeah, it's just sharded. We ran into that over the weekend.
Thanks for coming by, everyone. It's cool hanging out. As always.
Yeah. All right. See you, everybody.
Have a good night.
They could only create threads. Yeah.
Well, then you've got a concurrency problem.